Hello, I'm Kurt Lidke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched Bird of Greed, a short film in our Northern Shorts category for the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Joining us now is Cosmo Spada, the actor and film director behind this film. Cosmo, thank you for taking some time out to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, how did this film come about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I'd say the main reason why it was shot was I had the drive to make some kind of half camping trip, half creative outing with a few of my friends, and we decided on a location, and it all kind of stemmed from wanting to visit the Alvord Desert in southeastern Oregon, and we made a little film there.
Now, most Oregonians, I'd say probably
Hmm.
95%, have no idea or have ever come anywhere close to the Oliver Desert because it is such a remote location.
Hmm.
So the setting is absolutely gorgeous, but most have never gone south of Bend or you're east of Crater Lake. There's a little pocket of Oregon that's just forgotten. So how did you even find that location?
Yeah, well, I've known about it for quite a while, and I've always wanted to film something there. Um, but basically, I wanted something that could up the production level while not having to spend a lot to get there or film there. And for those who don't know, the Alvord Desert is a dried up lake bed that spans a couple of miles, and it's kind of bordered by the Steens Mountains. So it's just flat land with a bunch of kind of mountainous vistas surrounding it.
Yeah, it's a location where you really have to dedicate yourself to try to get there.
Mhm.
So, did you run into any sort of hardships in just trying to commute and get all your equipment out to that site?
Yes, I have a funny story about that. But so I rented a minivan to basically pile all the gear and then four of my friends all into one minivan to try and truncate our costs getting there. And we made it like a road trip, camping trip, like I said. And uh, in order to get there, I decided to do this. It's this access trail that goes on to the desert, and it's right next to some hot springs. But in order to get there, you have to get like a little code from the people who are kind of manning the station there in order to unlock the gate so you can actually drive on there because it's quite difficult to like get access to there. One of the reasons being it's surrounded by kind of like rocky terrain as well as just damp, wet mud. And when I was getting access to drive there, they warned me not to go onto that wet mud. And I said, yeah, sure, yeah, I'm not dumb. I won't drive on there. And I wanted to reward my friends after like a long day of filmmaking, and so we were going to have a dip in the hot springs that were there at that station. But in order to navigate the Alvord Desert, we were basically using Google Maps to drop a pin because it's pitch black, and we're just driving toward it on our GPS in order to find that little trail that we could drive in and out. And of course, what ended up happening was we were driving in the middle of the dark, and we ended up sinking into the ground. And our minivan did, in fact, get stuck in that mud. And we spent about 2 hours having to claw our rented minivan out from the mud. And it was pretty stressful. And we didn't get hardly enough sleep for the next day because of that. And we also did not get a dip in the hot springs.
Did you at least get the deposit back for the van? Because I'm assuming the mud probably did some damage.
No, we actually did a good job. We went through a car wash. We did a deep clean. There was no evidence that it was ever stuck in the mud.
Okay. Anything else really memorable or fun happen during the course of filming, beyond having to dig a car out?
Well, there were also swarms of bees that were kind of infesting the desert for whatever reason. And throughout our entire filmmaking process, we had these bees that were following us. And we thought maybe it's because they thought we had water or food or something. and the buzzing of the bees basically made all of our audio that was gotten unusable. So the majority of what you hear in Bird of Greed is made in post, the sound design.
See, now you should have incorporated that into the story somehow. You know, like try to modify the script where there's this constant atonal drone that is the sense of dread from a mystical swarm of bees that are being followed by the bird or something.
So I think the droning of the bees would actually compete with the drone of the metal detector, which was actually a theremin instrument that was used for the metal detector.
Okay. Okay, that would make sense then because this film did come across almost in the same vibe as like a silent movie in the
Mm.
way that you presented it. You know, the music has the driving force, and you let the visuals kind of tell the story without any sort of real dialogue. I wasn't sure if that was intentional or out of necessity in this case.
It was a It was planned, I'll say that, but it was also I wanted to do no dialogue in order to make sure I covered my bases when I was out in the desert because I knew it would be windy. I didn't accommodate for the bees, but I knew that if I did get audio, it probably wouldn't be as good in a controlled setting. So I wanted to make sure that what we filmed there was usable in post. So
Okay.
we didn't rely on dialogue.
Now, you are both a director and an actor. I know you've done all sorts of different film projects behind the camera, but had you ever directed yourself before? And what kind of challenges does that ever bring? Do you ever go like full on Devo actor on yourself as director to make all kinds of demands on yourself or anything like that?
So this was actually the first time that I've directed myself in front of the camera. And it was also an experiment in doing so. And I'd say like the biggest challenge was because I only had like four other crew members that not only was I juggling, acting, the directing part, I was doing a lot of like the script supervising stuff just because there weren't as many people there to juggle other roles between. So I'd say the biggest difficulty was having to like do a lot, uh, which is not only, taxing because I'm out in the heat, but also because we only filmed this in 2 days, and so it was pretty time sensitive to get everything in the can.
Well, and I go back to the setting of this is just remarkable. And one thing about it that really stands out and it is a good showcase is the fact that Oregon's landscape is so diverse as far as
Mm,
backdrops. Typically, people who aren't from Oregon think that it's nothing but forest
right.
forest in Portland. But between beaches and mountains and high plains, desert
Mm,
where you shot, there's so many diverse landscapes where you don't really need to fake anything. You just need to bring a camera out and showcase. Here's this incredible setting, and it
mhm,
can really um, the setting itself is almost like another character in the film.
yeah.
You've got yourself, you've got the bird character, and then this incredible scene. So, what are some of the advantages that you find to filming in Oregon?
Yeah, well, I live in a nice spot near Portland, and so I live an hour and a half from the beach, or I live an hour and a half from Mount Hood, and so I can get those snowy vistas. And driving to Eastern Oregon actually took me about 8 hours, so that was more of an ordeal. Um, but yeah, I think that's what I enjoy being a filmmaker in Oregon most is just the accessibility in all the different locations and settings.
The aside from your main character, Bird of Greed has a
Mm.
bird character, a spirit of the desert character. Uh, Our judges loved that costume. They were absolutely intrigued by the costume. So, what's the story behind that costume? How was it made? How long did it take? Who did it?
Yeah, so the costume is in two parts. The first, obviously, being that bird mask that you see. Now, the secret behind that is that it's not actually as homemade as you might think. In fact, that bird mask I discovered when I was at a Halloween shop days after Halloween to get all the discounts. But I stumbled upon it, and it was the only one left, and it was so um, lifelike in its appearance that I thought, with a little bit of like added makeup, like this could be its own costume on its own. I don't have to add much to it, and that was surprising because usually, you go to those Halloween stores, you find pretty cheap looking stuff, and
It's
then
amazing sometimes. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
uh, the other parts of the costume was pretty simple. It was just cut up burlap sack to make some little boots and like pants, and I added some little talon like fingernails I just got off of Amazon, and overall the costume was about under $100, but it looked more than that, and that all came together thanks to my costume designer and makeup artist on set, Lillian Carver.
It's amazing sometimes how things can get repurposed like that. I
Mm,
think back to the original John Carpenter Halloween film, and the
mm,
mask they used for Michael Myers was a Captain Kirk Star Trek mask that they just added a bunch
mm.
of hair and spray paint to. So, okay, kind of the same thing. You find something and then sort of build around it. I
Right.
guess so. With some of your other projects, have you taken similar approaches to costuming, or was this the first one where you've tried to go really sort of avant-garde with a whole like spirit creature involved in films?
Yeah, this is the first one where I kind of wanted to get a little gothic western tone in it. This isn't the first time though that I've done kind of this no dialogue filmmaking. I'm a big fan of like old Buster Keaton movies, and I just love like visual references to enhance the storytelling. And so when I can, I try and like stretch that filmmaking side of utilizing just visuals over dialogue.
That's fantastic. I'm a huge Buster Keaton fan myself. I think he's the greatest stunt man of all time. If you watch
Mm,
some of those old silent movies, the things that they pulled off with no safety nets would
yeah.
never fly in Hollywood today. So uh, your film though, because of these steps that you took, I mean, there's the setting, there's the costuming, there's the atonal vibe because there is no dialogue,
Mhm,
all kind of working together in a cohesive story. But it's harder than people think to tell a cohesive story with little to no dialogue when you can't tell people this is what's happening and this is what I'm feeling. That can lead to a lot of misinterpretations from people when they see
mhm.
something. So how do you summarize Bird of Greed? Or like what was the vibe that you were trying to give people that could possibly be misinterpreted because there's not that clear, definitive people saying, I'm
Mm.
doing this because this is what's going on.
Right, right. So I'd say that the main character, the prospector who I play, he's very much down on his luck, and he's searching for this gold, some kind of wealth in the desert, and he has his external motivations. You see the photo that he carries around of his significant other, and that may be like a motivation to get that wealth. But ultimately, um, I see it as he takes it on himself uh, to get that because he needs it rather than putting his own safety on the line, where he gives up, really leaving the desert. And at the end, you see him kind of transform into more of a bird of greed, if you will, which is kind of like the full circle of him just being overly consumed by his desire to get the gold.
What was the inspiration behind that story theme?
It actually stemmed from me finding the metal detector prop
Oh,
that's in the film. Uh, so I had the location in mind, the Alvord Desert, and then I had the metal detector, and I put two and two together, and so I had a character who was trying to find gold.
so what do you hope that people take away from your film?
Um, I think the main takeaway from Bird of Greed is that when you're striving to get some type of goal, there's a point to where you put your own, I guess, physical and mental safety on the line. You have to stop and think: is it worth continuing the journey, or are you fine with what you have?
Fantastic. So are you planning future camping trips slash work trips coming up soon with your buddies? Do you have any future projects in mind?
Probably post pandemic, for sure. Uh, but I definitely would like to experience the other biomes that Oregon has to offer. And
So
yeah.
where do you so this was a film inspired because you found props, which is an interesting
Mhm.
way to go about writing a story of finding an object and working your way around it. Usually people start with a story idea and then build out from there to kind of find
Right.
scene setting and items to use. So is that your typical writing process, or was this sort of an anomaly?
It is usually my typical writing process. Usually, I have a location in mind or a specific character or prop that I want to highlight, and then when I go and write why they're doing these things, why they're in the location, the story kind of develops itself around that.
Okay. Any final thoughts about your film that you think or that you would like people to know about Bird of Greed?
Um, yeah, I'd say I want to give a shout out to just all the crew that helped me make that film. I definitely couldn't have done it without them. Uh, my sound designer, Jared Slife, my composer who made original music for the entire film, Victor Krause, and of course all the friends who went with me on that camping trip, Sarah Granberg, Lillian Carver, Jake Teason, and Coleman Weimer.
And lesson learned, if you're going to go out into remote areas, stay on the designated path.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Cosmo, very much
Sure.
for joining us to talk about your incredible film. And in addition to being available online all weekend via Inventive, people can catch Bird of Greed in person at the Ross Rowden Theater here in Klamath Falls on Sunday, September 20th at 5:30 p.m. for the 8th annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. Cosmo, thank you so much for the time and thank you for the incredible film.
Thank you.